Good morning, everybody. Please, I'm on number one. No, yes, two. Two even, Colin, sorry. Please do sit down for a few notices before we begin. Firstly, thank you. Huge thank you to all those who helped out in the churchyard the other week. I have got some certificates. They're in my diary. Not sure where my diary is at the moment, but hey, I've got some. And also for all those who came up on Saturday and helped prepare the church for harvest, thank you. It looks absolutely wonderful, smells amazing, and look at all the packets and tins and so on that we've got and produce to put through the food bank tomorrow and into the week. That's amazing. Thank you so much. There have been lots of causes for celebration recently. Last week was a service of commemoration and commendation for the Queen, which wasn't necessarily a celebration for her, although it was a long and amazing reign for Elizabeth II. We did celebrate Charles being made king. There have also been some birthdays this week. I'm not going to name any names, but I'm waving at the gallery. So a very happy birthday for yesterday. And it is wonderful to meet baby Rosie for the first time. James and Kath have brought her to church, and that's just amazing. That's Judy's granddaughter, those who remember Judy Woods. So absolutely fabulous to see you here in church this morning and to celebrate harvest with us. There is one more cause for celebration, and I'm going to ask Beverly to announce that as our church warden. Thank you.
Actually, I've got 3 notices, but there we are. At the back of church, there is a form from Compassion. So if any of you sponsor a child through this, can you put your name and details on there? Because they have asked us to fill this form in. So that's number 1. Number 2 is on Tuesday at 2 o'clock, it's Women's Fellowship, where we're going to be talking about the Scilly Isles. And this, number 3, is the big one. Seems a long time since we had a vicar. I'm sure it seems very long, especially for Lynn and Mo. But I have an announcement from the Archdeacon. We are delighted to announce that we had a successful interview day on Wednesday. A formal announcement will be made in 2 weeks' time after certain preliminaries have been completed, and we can coordinate announcements with the parish that the successful candidate is leaving. In the meantime, please do not ask those you think may know the identity of the priest who it is, because they must keep the details confidential for now. But the good thing is that we are getting a new vicar. So, come on.
Sorry, being a bit over-enthusiastic there. Fabulous. So we look forward to being able to introduce that person to you in a few weeks' time and to let you know a bit more. But here we are. We've come. It's our Harvest Festival service this morning. And harvest is the end of creation tide, really, the period in the church where we celebrate the gifts that we receive from God, the variety of life, and we give thanks. We also consider how we are stewards to God's world, how we play our part in protecting the wonderful gifts that he has given to us. Just under a year ago, October time last year, I went to Iona with a group from the diocese. And Iona, it was the last week of their season. It's one of the Inner Hebrides Islands, but it is fairly inaccessible. You have to go on at least 2 ferries to get there, both of which can be held up by the weather. So it can be very isolated. And we had a wonderful week. Some of the days we were completely cut off because boats couldn't land on the slipway. And it just helped us to really focus on why Columba settled there and the things that he was doing, and the fact that his community had to be self-sufficient on that wild, exposed island. The nearest landfall to the west is North America. So it misses, if you go straight west, you miss Ireland, you just go straight across the Atlantic. So Columba settled there and developed a self-sufficient community some 1,500 years ago. And on the days that things couldn't come across from the next island over, and thence from the mainland, Iona and Mull try and stay self-sufficient, and they support one another in what they produce. So much of what we ate was grown in the organic garden of the hotel. Much of the meats that we ate was running around a few days before in the fields nearby. So it was very, very reflective place to be. So this morning, we're going to use an Iona service written by a lady called Joy Mead in the middle of about 2015 she wrote this. And it's thinking about God's creation and what we might be able to do and how we might be able to help. So we're going to try and reflect on that, the good and the bad things that we too might do. So we're going to, before we have a little activity, the smaller of the two activities, with the smallest things, we're going to just have some opening prayers, and the responses on the screen there in the bold type and capitals. So let's start with some opening responses. For the sweetness of the soil from which we come and to which we will return, we give thanks with joy and wonder. For the openness of air which we breathe and sometimes walk upon, we give thanks with joy and wonder. For the release of water that bubbles and streams and sometimes questions us, we give thanks with joy and wonder. For the surprise of fire that kindles and flames, is fearsome and bold, and sometimes lights up faces with laughter, we give thanks with joy and wonder. May we see in these elements our need, our fulfillment, and our belonging. Amen. Now, we're going to sing a traditional harvest song, which I know you all know well. Come, ye thankful people, come. Thank you, Paul. So, before we go on to the readings, please do sit down. A couple of things I just wanted to, this is a little activity. I have here some sweet corn, okay? Ready to eat. Couldn't get one with a husk still on it, I'm afraid. Well, tried really hard, but I couldn't. So, but anyway, there's my tea. Also found in tins. Also found ground into flour, corn flour. That's not wheat corn, that's maize corn. Turned into breakfast cereals. Turned into popcorn. Okay, so from one small seed, the kernel of the sweet corn, we can create all sorts of wonderful things. We're very clever at cooking it and doing all sorts of things with it and preparing it. Similarly, on the other end of the table, there's some beans and pulses. There's some lentil crisps. There's some rice crackers. There's a packet of stuff that you stick in the microwave, which has got so many different types of seed in it. I'm sure they're all delicious. You're going to try that out any minute now. But lots and lots of different seeds, all of which are edible. I don't know who found out that they were edible, but somebody obviously did. Sadly, I haven't found the pine nuts out of here, but some of us eat pine nuts, don't we? Yeah, makes really good, like, pesto, doesn't it? Pine nuts in rice and spaghetti and all sorts. So, again, another harvest. I did find some acorns and conkers, but I'm not sure which pocket I've put them in because I haven't got them. They're very shiny. Apparently conkers are good at keeping spiders out of the house if you put them by the window. Very good at this time of the year. But conkers are not edible for human beings. Give you a nasty tummy ache. As are acorns. In fact, acorns, even for animals, if they eat too many, give them a horrible bellyache. So I wouldn't advise eating acorns. I think people have tried to turn them into flour and all sorts, but I wouldn't if I was you. But on your tables, you've got a white paper plate, and on that paper plate is a plastic bag. I'm going to steal one off that table so these ladies can have the same fun that you're going to have. I say fun. Okay, there we go, ladies. In your bag, in that plastic bag, there are a whole range of different edible seeds. They are all edible. None of them, as far as I know, cause allergies, bar one, which I think probably you can identify fairly quickly. It's the biggest seed that's in there. Now, if you wish to tip them out onto the plate, so it's easier to separate them and identify, please do. If you want to try and taste them or smell them to see if that helps you identify them, again, that's fine. You can do that too. But you have got actually a baker's dozen different sorts of seeds in there. You've got 13 different sorts of seeds. So I'm going to give you 4 seconds each. No, that's not long enough, is it? 2 minutes to see if you can identify what some of these seeds are. And I'm just going to get some for Mo and Beverly because they definitely need to have a go. There you go. Come on, Paul, I'm sure you... Okay, your time is coming to an end. Ladies and gents, if you want to take these home to complete the quiz and to bring me back a list of 12 or more different things that you've got in your bag, then that would be great. Or you can just feed them to the birds, one or the other. But just let's have a quick whiz round and see if anybody's managed to identify any of the things that are in there. Robin, what about you? Oh, what, the little tiny black ones? No, actually, they're not. They're poppy seeds, yeah? I shouldn't be telling you, should I? Heather, what about you? Have you identified any of the seeds there? Almonds, yeah, good. I don't think there's any almonds left on this plate. I think somebody's been and nibbled them.
That's my little nutty friend.
What about John? I like the way you two are tasting them and smelling them to see whether you can identify, because some of them look very similar, don't they? But they taste very different. Anybody else got something? What about here, Bobby? Haven't got a clue about any of them? Come on then, Chrissy. Well done, a cardamom pod, yeah. Lovely, in Indian dishes and rices. Steve? Sorry? No, there's not any juniper berries in there. The round red ones are the same as the black and the white red ones. They're all types of peppercorns, yeah. Peppercorns. Okay. Anyone else spotted anything? You might try, there's some purpley coloured ones. Anybody identified those? Pam, have you identified a purpley coloured one? There is a clove in there. Well done, Norman.
Yeah.
There is fennel seeds in there, yeah. Yeah. That's the one that's aniseedy, yeah. There's caraway seeds in there. They're very nutty and yummy.
What was the aniseed one called?
Fennel.
Fennel.
Fennel seeds. It's good, isn't it?
That's potent, actually.
Yeah. Is there? Yes, there's cloves.
Mine as well.
Oh, we said sunflowers.
No, but there are sunflower seeds in there. Pumpkin seeds, the green ones. Anybody identified the yellow ones? There are some peppercorns, yeah. No sesame, because that's an allergen. I did my food hygiene, you can tell, can't you? Food safety.
Because I told you to take them out.
Oh, you want some too? Oh, dear. So the yellow ones are linseed. And then the little tiny round ones that look a bit like seeds from rose hips, those are hemp. The stuff that you make rope from the stringy things. But anyway, if you can remember all those and write them down and give them to me, I might find a prize, so well done. Okay, so lots and lots and lots of seeds. I'm going to ask Mo to give us our first reading this morning from Genesis. Thank you, Mo.
Then God said, "Let the earth produce growing things. Let there be on the earth plants that bear seed, and trees bearing fruit, each with its own kind of seed." So it was. The earth produced growing things, plants bearing their own kind of seed, and trees bearing fruit, each with its own kind of seed. And God saw that it was good.
Give us seed corn to keep us alive, or we shall die, and our land will become a desert.
You've looked at a number of seeds. There are more seeds around the church here that are also edible. Rose hips, there are allium seeds or onion seeds, things like that, which we often use to give flavour to foods. There's more poppy seeds in those pepper pots, aren't they? Poppy pots and seed heads there. But seeds, who knew that some were good, some were bad, some tasted good, some tasted bad? We need to investigate, don't we? We need to be interested. We need to have some degree of awe and wonder in what we are doing. So way back, when people started harvesting the plants, they discovered that some were good, some were not so good. So all of life starts from that tiny seed. Some seeds, as we know, are bigger than others, but even the tiny poppy seed that you've got there on your plate will create a wonderful plant this size with blooms that are the size of your saucer there, and brilliant colours. Each tiny seed holds everything that is necessary for it to produce its own seed in due time. And each one of us has that inside us too, to produce good fruit and more seed in our own time. So we're going to sing a new song now. We're going to have a go at singing a song which Mel is going to lead us in, because she knows it well, but we're going to try and join in. If you can't join in, just enjoy the words. It's important to think about all those who are tilling the soil and trying to cultivate crops, not just here, but across the world. So, spare a thought. Thank you, Paul.
Spare a thought for the farmers, working hard for day long, gathering food for the harvest. We think we'll them in our song. Help us, Lord, to remember other people in prayer. May we always extend our hand of friendship and care. Spare a thought for the children in a country far from our own, where there's no food to harvest and sometimes even no home. Help us, Lord, to remember other people in prayer. May we always extend our hand of friendship and care. Spare a thought for the chapel, may be with us today, feeling lonely or fearful, or needing help in some way. Help us, Lord, to remember other people in prayer.
Please do sit down while I read you a poem. The given beauty of it, inert in my palm. Tender, fragile thing, quietly holding good for all people. Complex and intricate, storing life and the means of life. The silent wonder of it. Jack in the Beanstalk story, always ready to sprout while the sower is away. Fairy story or miracle? Seed, soil, labour and love. Life, death and rebirth. Earth's best gift, seed of freedom for all our tomorrows. continuance of life here on earth may depend on each one of us rekindling our sense of wonder and our understanding of the beauty and of the fragile connections. Seed is not commodity to be sold, to be exchanged amongst people. It is a gift to be freely shared. Hope comes in such little things, such little acts. Thank you, Mo. I have to say I'm disappointed. She said she might try and find her sari that she used to have when she was in Bangladesh, but obviously it's packed away.
I couldn't find the petticoat to hold it up, which is vital. I was in Bangladesh from 1978 to 1980, and the grounds of the hospital where I worked had paddy fields in them. And we were part of a project where they were beginning to look at seeds and why the rice wasn't growing properly. And they had begun to look at the seeds, look at what they were doing, look at how they were planting them. Why were the seeds dying in the water? Why were they going mouldy? And they began to work on it. And they began to find varieties that worked in that environment. And they were helped by one of the missionaries who was a farmer from the UK. He came out there and he helped them. And they started, in a really small way, to store the seeds that worked and not to store the seeds that didn't. And now, things are very different. In the time that I was there, they went from being able to get 2 crops of rice to 3 crops of rice a year, which fed the local community. But now farming families in Bangladesh have set up seed banks of traditional varieties. And they call them community seed wealth centres. And by swapping seeds, they bypass the commercial seed people. So they keep the profit, they keep the wealth within their communities so that they can feed their communities and sell what's over. This means that they're not only self-reliant, but the biodiversity of the world's agricultural resources, and this is happening all over the world. People are using what grows in their area. They're not buying seeds from America or England or wherever, because we need different seeds to what they need out there. The slogan of the women in Bangladesh is, "Keep the seed in your hand, sister." I think that's quite good. You could say, "Keep your seed in your hand, brother," so I'm not being but it's mostly the women who go out in the fields in Bangladesh and plant the rice. The men walk up and down with the water buffalo, and the women follow behind and put the seeds in. Back-breaking work. Bear in mind you're bent over like this all day. So this resists the trend in modern agriculture towards high yields and fashion foods. It's agri-culture, about nurturing the seed and the knowledge of local farmers rather than cash investment.
All beans have their own Jack in the beanstalk story. They are magic in many different ways. A cooperative on the edge of the Petén rainforest in northern Guatemala uses the macuna bean as fertilizer. These magic beans are planted between rows of maize and allowed to decompose, making bean manure which leaves the soil visibly richer and substantially increases cereal yields naturally and sustainably.
Thank you for those two reflections. I'm going to give you time now for another activity, and the next activity is a bit more creative. You should have somewhere a bag with a cardboard pot in it, and inside the cardboard pot is just some shredded paper. We're pretending it's soil, okay? So some shredded paper. And then you've got a stick, and what you're going to try and do is to create a plant to put into your flower pot, okay? Effectively, what you've got to manage to do is to get some bits of paper stuck to the top of it with a glue stick, and then you've got some leaves on your table, some green leaves like these, and if you're lucky, they've got a hole in them that you can just slide them onto the stick. Is that a bit clever? I thought that would be easier than trying to glue them on, because they're nice-looking leaves, so instead of just bits of paper. But to do the flower on the top, there's an easy way around it. Firstly, the centre, if you stick the centre of the flower on first, is just a little bit of yellow tissue. You could use orange or some other colour if you wanted a different coloured centre. It's folded, and then it's just feathered on the top end. And then all you need to do is to add some glue on the top of the stick and just start winding it round and finish with a little bit of glue to hold it tight. And then the petals, I chose orange just to show you, are done in the same way. It's a slightly longer strip of coloured paper, okay? But all I did was fold it in half, and in half again, and in half a third time, and then just round off the top, so it looked like a flower petal. And then just like the yellow bit, I started at one end with some glue. If you're clever, you can get glue on the tissue paper. If you're not, you have to put glue on the stick because the tissue paper can tear. But effectively, all I did was stick one end on and then just pleat the other ones round a little bit at a time and adding a little bit more glue. If you're desperately in need of some more glue sticks and scissors on your table, wave a hand and I will find you one. I'm going to give you 3 or 4 minutes to see if you too can create yourself a flower on your stick to stick into your pot. I've tried to make it as simple as possible. Would you like one? You can play, yeah, please. Okay, you're on a countdown of 30 seconds, okay? 30 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time up. If you've not quite finished and you can do it without making a noise, you can carry on whilst through our prayer time if you find that helpful for prayer. Before we go into prayer time, I'm going to remind you that hope is in the God of the smallest things. Our God takes care of the very smallest things, as did Jesus. The things which look least significant, he's the one who takes care of those. So let's think of what the world might be like if there were no flowers or trees. Our world is fast changing, filling itself with buildings and factories and roads and other infrastructure. And the natural world is diminishing rapidly, too rapidly for the world's good. So we're going to sing, Think of a World Without Any Flowers. So please do sit down for our time of prayer this morning. And the response is the same for each section, and it's on the screen right now. So, Lord, may awe and wonder be sustained within us, so that we are each able to see the beauty of the earth as an infinite whole, that we can see eternity in tiny seeds, and understand life and death in the fall of a sparrow. God of love and every truth, help us to look with open eyes to see with open hearts. May we be filled with some vision and imagination so that we're able to see how waste and greed in one place diminishes life in another. Help us to rediscover the significance and surprise of sharing. God of all love and every truth, help us to look with open eyes and to see with open hearts. Lord, we pray that we would be filled with compassion and understanding, so that we're open to listening to the hidden people whose ancient knowledge and wisdom could be our hope and our salvation. God of all love and every truth, help us to look with open eyes and to see with open hearts. May we be filled with fire and vigor, anger when there are short-sighted policies, cold-blooded economics or heartless trading, so that we can protest others' greed and the misuse of the earth's resources, and seek passionately the just use of the abundant knowledge, skills, and resources which are there to cherish all life. God of all love and every truth, help us to look with open eyes and see with open hearts. So we're going on to think about the soil that the seeds are planted in. I'm not going to read you the parable of the sower, but we're going to think about the soil, because caring and using seeds is, we've just heard, is about agriculture, not agribusiness. It's about reverence. It's about looking after what is good. Seeds, plants, and future life is more than the means to food. It is the storage place of culture and of our history. It's the bearer of immortality. And the free exchange of seeds between one community and another exchanges ancient and local wisdom, local understanding of soil and society. And I'm sure you've seen it with the heritage vegetables that you can now grow, if you wish, or buy in the supermarket, and how purple carrots was apparently the original colour. They were never orange. It's weird, isn't it? And oranges were not orange, they were green. But anyway, there we go. The things that we like now that we never used to have. And tomatoes as well used to be yellow rather than red. But there we go. Okay, Mo, sorry.
I don't know if I said to you Sanskrit text, if you know what I was talking about. Well, it doesn't look like anything that we would call text. It's swirls like this. And again, while I was in Bangladesh, I had to learn Bengali. And I got to, I was telling Lynn yesterday, I got to grade 2, which is just about infant school level of reading. Very, very difficult, because it was all lines, curls, and you read it that way, not that way. And they didn't put any vowels in. But it came from, Bengali came from a Sanskrit text. And a Sanskrit text written in about 1500 BCE says, "Upon this handful of soil our survival depends. Husband it, and it will grow our food, fuel and our shelter, and surround us with beauty. Abuse it, and the soil will collapse and die, taking humanity with it." The UN Food and Agricultural Organization says that due to the degradation of the world's topsoil, the world on average has just 60 more years of growing crops. In Britain, Farmers Weekly reports the UK only has 100 harvests left in its soil due to intensive over-farming. A handful of soil contains more microorganisms than all the people who have ever lived on earth. To feed the people, we must protect the earth and work with natural systems rather than seeking to replace them. This is a permaculture.
Understanding seed, soil, and society means celebrating abundance together. I'm going to read Psalm 104, part of it. You make springs break out in the wadis, so that water from them flows between the hills. The wild beasts all drink from them. The wild donkeys quench their thirst. The birds of the air nest on their banks and sing among the foliage. From your dwelling you water the hills. The earth is enriched by your provision. You make the grass grow for the cattle and plants for the use of mortals, producing grain from the earth, food to sustain their strength, wine to gladden the hearts of the people, and oil to make their faces shine.
I'm looking at shining faces now. It's lovely. The people sang that psalm as they pilgrimaged to the temple in Jerusalem. They walked through the valleys that were decked with grain, and they saw the year crowned with good gifts, filled with wonder and thankfulness, not only for food, but continuing life and the sheer beauty of it all. And if you've ever watched the morning light, it's easier at the moment because the sun is rising a little bit later, so about 7, if you just watch the light through the curtains, playing on the wall or on fruit or on the hedgerows. It's amazing. If you've ever smelled fresh bread cooking, we're very near to the Rivita factory, aren't we? And the smell there, absolutely wonderful. So if you've ever been into a meadow and smelt the flowers, again, that honey sweetness that you get from the flowers and the herbs, some of the things that you've tasted this morning. The abundance of God's creation is out there, but it's not about harnessing that for our use or enslaving it and using it, but it's about celebrating it and about sharing it. So, Mo, thank you.
The psalm is clear about the earth's abundance. It's for sharing. Hunger in a world of plenty is not caused by lack of food. There is enough food at the moment to make most people in the world fat. Hunger is caused by injustice. We don't lack food. We lack compassion. To see how things could be different. Food, in all its ordinariness, calls us to enter the mystery of our relationship with the earth and our interconnectedness with all life. Our food is sacred. Our eating together a holy act or miracle, not to be taken for granted.
John chapter 6, Beverly.
So I'm going to read John chapter 6, starting at verse 1. Jesus feeds the 5,000. Sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, that is, the Sea of Tiberias, and a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the miraculous signs he had performed on the sick. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover feast was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming towards him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 8 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each one to have a bite. Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, but how far will they go among so many?" Jesus said, "Make the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, and the men sat down, about 5,000 of them. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. When they had all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over, let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
We've all heard that story before, the feeding of so many. So I'm just going to give you a very short piece of a poem entitled An Ordinary Miracle. A child, a disciple, and the one who understands just and equal sharing know that there will be enough to go around. And they refuse to say, "It can't be done." And so it happens. A great feast. Hearts, hands, baskets, pockets open. A neighbour gives bread and peace to their neighbour. Each one makes a place for the other. It is the most ordinary of miracles, and all are fed. So, God of open hands and once upon a time moments, help us to extend the barriers of possibility and continually redream our worlds. So as we come to the end of our service this morning, we're going to sing that traditional, wonderful song, "We plough the fields and scatter the good seed on the land." Thank you.
He sends
So I just remind you before you go, please do, if you wish, to take your seeds and either eat them or sprinkle them in the garden for the birds. It's entirely up to you. They are all edible, really, even the lavender. If you want to take your flowers to remind you of God's brilliance and goodness in giving us everything we need to make a beautiful world, then please do. If you would rather leave them on the windowsill to decorate the church, that is equally lovely, and we will distribute them to our homes when we do visits this week. So I leave that up to you, but as we leave, let's have a blessing. May food, friendship, and thankfulness nourish each one of us. Nourish our compassion, give us energy for our protests so that the time will come when we all share in the feasting and in the fun. Amen. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Paul. Thank you.